stage and sit on these beautiful chairs. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Paul, and it's a great pleasure to be here on this first day of a very important workshop. I'm not going to spend a great deal of time introducing this panel. I think it speaks for itself, the topic at least. You know, food security is obviously foremost amongst the challenges not just being faced within the kingdom, but globally. But before food security, there's water security. You know, you cannot have the first without the second. And in regions such as this and other dryland worlds, the dryland regions of the world, which produce a significant proportion of global food supplies, your water security is that issue that is fundamental and requires some innovative approaches and solutions to address the overwhelming challenge that we face not just today, but moving forward into the future. You know, the unspoken issue between food and water security is the impact of climate and how we are going to address those challenges going forward into the coming decades. So there's nothing I can really add to Mark's fantastic introduction this morning that really set the framework for the next 3 days of conversations. And that's really what we want to be able to have in this session. And to do that, I've assembled a nice cross-section of water security issues and water planning issues that address some of those challenges in the kingdom, but also internationally. The first speaker I'll introduce is Dr. Jalal, and I'll provide a formal introduction to him shortly. Dr. Jalal is representing some of the government-based actions as relates to water security. He'll provide a bit of an overview and a framework for the kingdom's state of affairs. Next will be Dr. Gustavo Diaz. He's an independent consultant, is probably the best description, who's had an incredible range of experiences with international agencies, focused predominantly in this region. So he's going to provide a very unique perspective from the outside looking in to the actions of government in the kingdom and the legislative framework, as well as the implementation and adoption of policies designed to address some of the very issues that we're going to be talking about today. Online, we'll have Dr. Abdullah AlRashi. He's going to present some very nice insights into the technological innovations that we may be able to pursue going forward. We've heard a few of those this morning, inferred in remote sensing and drones, relate to some of the work that we're doing here at KAUST. And finally, we're going to have Dr. Yoshihiro Wada, who's an expert on global interactions of the food, water, and energy nexus. Yoshi was actually meant to be here today, but he got delayed, so he's actually going to be dialing in from an airport in Dubai on his way here. He will be joining us tomorrow. But such is his enthusiasm that he took a very red-eye flight to get here as soon as possible. Now, a couple of facts I think that will set the framework a little bit more for the water security side. This is building on some of Mark's already. But one of the things we haven't touched upon in the food and water is the energy side of the equation. And the kingdom consumes a huge amount of energy just in the provision of water. About 20% of energy needs goes towards domestic production of desalinated water. Now, we produce around 10 million, a little bit more, barrels of oil per day. So 2 million barrels of oils per day going into the production of water, thereabouts. Now, the price of oil around $100 a barrel, you can do the sums pretty quickly. And that only accounts for about 10% of all of the fresh water used in the kingdom. Now, we're talking about 24 to 30 cubic kilometres when you add it all up. So these are some major issues and major financial incentives to address when we're looking at the fundamental idea of more crop per drop, which is underlying a lot of the aspects that we're going to talk about. So with that broad and brief introduction out of the way, I'm going to move directly to our speakers. Paul has already indicated we're on a very tight schedule with time. He didn't say what happens after he rings that 1 minute bell, but I can tell you at that 1 minute bell, the lunch vouchers are removed. So you will lose that capacity to have lunch from my speakers. So they've all been warned. But I really want to engage the audience in questions and an organic discussion after these presentations. So my pleasure to introduce Dr. Jalal Basahi. Jalal is the Director of the National Research Centre at the Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture, and also a Professor of Water Resources and Management at the King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah. Dr. Jalal had a PhD from King Saud, for his undergraduate at King Saud University, and MS and PhD from Texas A&M, focusing on the very important area of agricultural engineering, so it's certainly pertinent to today's discussions. His area of specialty is in irrigation engineering, hydraulics, and irrigation and drainage systems. But he's probably going to be talking a little bit more today about the overarching aspects of the ministry's responsibilities for water, where he leads that very important directorship of Water Research Centre at MEWA. And he's also going to provide some of the insights into agricultural water use and Saudi Arabia's national water strategy for Vision 2030. So Jalal, I'll welcome you to the podium. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum. Up and down. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm going to give a very brief presentation about the agriculture water use and the Saudi National Water Strategy. I think all of us know that we are living in a very arid region. This gives a very little amount of rainfall. The average is about 100 millimeter per year in most of Saudi Arabia, except the southwest. Maybe it has about average of about 300 millimeter per year. This means that we are relying on the unrenewable water resources for agriculture. The renewable resources only in the western part, and most of the agricultural activity is located in the eastern part. Here in the right map shows the main aquifer in the eastern part is renewable water. It's the main aquifer and the main agricultural activity. It's in the Arabian Shelf, whereas in the Arabian Shield we have partially renewable water because of the surface runoff and little bit more rain we have there. The agricultural activities in the last maybe 40 years started, I think the big agricultural activity started in, I think 1980, started in large scale in the 1980 and started to consume a lot of groundwater resources. This slide shows that by 2016, it was the maximum water consumption in Saudi Arabia. It's about 45 of it was used by agricultural sector. Then the government started actually after that happened during the last, maybe by the end of the last decade and early in the 20 years of from 25 until 2019. The right figure shows the area that used the unconfined aquifer or the unrenewable water use. The red ones is located in the east part, in the southern part, and it has very actually extensive use for groundwater, while the green one is the one in the southwest and the one in the Arabian Shield, and it uses renewable water. Due to the extensive use of water for agriculture, the level of groundwater has been dropped down very quick. As we see in this figure, in some areas, some main aquifers, the drop down was about 160, average about 3 meters each year drop down in that. Most of the aquifers about 3 meter down, leading to a very drawdown, huge drawdown in the last 20 years. Due to the excessive use of water in agriculture, the government established or published the strategy, the National Water Strategy. I think this strategy will lead to improving water use. I'm not going to talk about the vision and the strategic objective due to the time, but the strategy have 10 programs and 47 initiatives. For 10 program and 47 initiatives. The purpose of it is to improve water use and water efficiency. I brought here the 4 that are related to agriculture use. The program 1, program 2, program 4, and program 10. Program 1 is to have the Water Act, and this program I think almost is done. The water law has been published in 2020, and it is actually there is 2 law in it is about that serving the agriculture. Is one mention that the groundwater is public revenue, and the second one gives the MEWA the authority to install meters and to charge water over the excessive use of water by finding the water requirement for each farm. Whatever above that water requirement, it may be charged for, they have to pay for it. The second program is water resources management, and this is actually aimed to improve water use by integrating water resource management, developing water resources, using the sewage water, treated sewage water, and improving the surface water use. The third one is the research development and capability building. This aims to improve the research and development in the sector of water. Actually, the strategies talk about all water sector. I'm here just talking about the agriculture because we are concentrating about the agriculture, and it is huge. And the fourth one, and it's important, restructuring SIO, Saudi Organization Authority. And it is the one that I think it will lead the use of water in agriculture in the next future. The government, I think, now they are responsible for water reuse. It should be previously with the National Water Company. Now it's moved to the SIO, and I think they have their own strategy to improve water use, and either by distributing the treated water or by improving the water efficiencies. This is an example. This example for the initiative. Each program of the one we talked about has an initiative. The program number 1 has 2 initiatives. Number 2 has 15 initiatives, and program 4 has 3 initiatives, and the 10th has 3 initiatives too. This is, I just brought some examples. The first one, Water Act and Water Resources Management. It has 2 initiatives. I think this is mostly has been done. The Water Act or Water Law has been published in 2000, I think 20, and the MEWA is doing a lot of work to improve the regulation and water code and use of water. The second program has actually 15 initiative, but I brought the thing that related to agriculture. Actually, most of it was for governance and improving water resources and improving water management and development. This is actually forecast for water supply. This 2016, the time that strategy has been implemented. In 2030, as you see here in 2016, the use was about 21 billion cubic meter. Water use agriculture. I'm considering about the agriculture. 21 billion cubic meter. The aim to reduce it to be in 2030 to decrease it about 50% to 11.4 billion cubic meter. This is in agriculture. As you see, it depends on the because most of the agricultural activities in the confined aquifers, which is including the unrenewable water. The eastern part depends on that. 19 billion cubic meter was used from the non-renewable water. The aim is to reduce that to 6.6 by 2030, to reduce it to 6.6, and to increase the water use from the surface water, which is renewable and surface water, and to increase the treated wastewater. In general, it will reduce the water use in agriculture about 15%, 50%. This is an example for timeline for each initiative. Just to increase the initiative, and this one is just to get the key performance for the initiative that is going to be applied, like the one that circles, that's the one related to agriculture. We have the renewable water use would be increased from 34% right now to 43%. The one in red, it was in 2016, it's been done. The treated wastewater or the irrigation efficiency will be increased from 60 to 75%. I think we still some farm using surface water, and this is lower the efficiency of irrigation systems. Wastewater reuse will be increased, will be doubled from 35. We're talking about 2020 to 70% in 2030. And consumption of water used from non-renewable water is going to be decreased in 2030 to be 6.5. The ministry actually is implementing, or MEWA, the Deputy Minister for Water, implementing some practices right now to improve the water use. I think they have an initiative to install about 5,000 flow meters to the big farms to reduce, to actually monitor their use for water, and maybe apply the technique of finding their water requirement. And if they exceed that amount, they will charge them for the extra amount they use. I think the main problem we have that we have limited water, and the water has no value in agriculture. Has no value. There is no value for water. They just pump, drill well and pump water and irrigate as much as they want. I think the ministry right now is trying to govern this way to find in the beginning how much water need from water requirement, and allow me to pump only that much of water from the aquifers and charge them if they pass it. The tariff is not actually decided how much they are going to charge them, but it is in plan. In the meantime, they are trying to increase the use of renewable water by rainfall harvesting, especially by building dams. Right now, we have about 560 dams in Saudi Arabia, and I think there's an initiative to build a new 1,000 dams. Right now, we are harvesting about 1.6 billion cubic meter per year in the dams, and the plan by 2030 it will be about 2.6. So use surface water, and I think this will improve the water use in the agriculture, and the concentration right now somehow in to the southwest region because it has more rain and more surface water and renewable water. This plan, I think, implementing the strategic plan with good agricultural practices will improve water use and safe water, and will contribute directly to the food security in the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jalal. I think that's a great concluding statement to your presentation on the fact that we don't value water. I think we can all recognise that, and the fact that we don't value it is probably because there's not a price on it. At least from an agricultural perspective. And until that happens, we're probably not going to see the sustainable, or the shift towards more sustainable use of that resource. What I'm going to do, I'm going to hold questions until the end, so that we have a good half hour. And I'm finishing at 1 o'clock on the dot, right? Or yeah. So the speakers are acutely aware that they're holding you back from lunch. So the next speaker is Dr. Gustavo Diaz. I've known Gustavo since almost the time that I arrived at KAUST. He was very instrumental in establishing our initial collaborations with the ministry, and indeed in shepherding one of the major projects that we undertook with the ministry on groundwater abstraction and water accounting. Dr. Diaz has a MS and PhD in civil engineering from Colorado State University. And he's worked extensively on a range of water management and water resource assessment projects with the World Bank, the United Nations Development Programme, and also the Food and Agricultural Organization. He's probably got one of the most detailed and intimate knowledges of the Kingdom's water requirement, particularly in the context of providing an international perspective on that, related to the governance and policy related challenge. And I think Gustavo is going to talk a little bit about that today. His title of the presentation is Groundwater Governance in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Path Towards a Sustainable Water and Food Security Nexus. Gustavo, thank you.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you, Professor Matthew, for the opportunity to share with the audience what has been kind of a historical perspective of this water and food nexus in the kingdom. Okay, here we are. Basically, I'm going to open my presentation giving you this, I say, historical perspective during the last 20 years. About exactly 20 years ago, 2002, a group of hydrogeologists from the old Ministry of Agriculture in this kingdom realized the importance of the depletion of the aquifers because of the excessive drawdown of groundwater because of irrigated agriculture. So that prompted them to move away from that ministry and create the Ministry of Electricity and Water at that time, where they really embarked on the study of hydrogeological studies of all the main 7 aquifers, principal aquifers that the kingdom has. That really brought a lot of momentum in creating a knowledge base, an important knowledge base for the water sources in the kingdom. My closing of the presentation would be in terms of presenting to you a tool that will help make this nexus, water and food, a reality. How can we, in practical terms, really implement all the many good ideas that has been and will be presented here for the next 3 days in terms of the administration of the resource? We know that water and agriculture are very strongly linked. We cannot do well on one side without doing well on the other side. So keep that in mind and pretty much fasten your seatbelts because we're gonna have to move very fast. The second big push or big momentum given to this nexus was about the time of Vision 2030. This slide here shows kind of the backbone of my presentation. This is a hierarchy, it shows the hierarchy, is this pyramid, it shows the hierarchy of the decision making in the kingdom in terms of this nexus. It starts with the Vision 2030, which definitely get a very strong mandate on how that nexus has to be administered. The second big topic was the National Water Strategy that came together pretty much at the same time that the National Agriculture Strategy, in which policy options were set up on the table, very good ideas. The question is how to go about implementing them. And the combination of the vision and the strategies actually brought together not only policy options, but also a new legal and regulatory structure to the kingdom in terms of both water and agriculture. So let me show you, for instance, oh, sorry, that's the problem here. In terms of the initiatives, sorry, I don't know, what did I do? Can you help me go back to my presentation?
Let's go to.
Let's just go here. Okay. In terms of the, I'm going to try to skip a few of the slides, but let me talk to you about a little bit about the South Division. The South Division is very clear in terms of very strong mandate on how government has to operate in terms of giving high priority to e-government. Being able to really open up channels of communication between or among all the many players that deal in the water and agricultural sector. So, for instance, no, sorry.
Yeah, well, delay sometimes.
Yeah, I know that.
It's annoying.
Very annoying. It was right here. No. No, we're not there. Go up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll try to. Yeah. Sorry about that. Again, sorry because of this struggles with technology. At the bottom of the first blue and red levels of the pyramid, they deal with what is called the enabling environment. What is necessary to be there to be able to reach the bottom of the pyramid, which is the day-to-day administration of the natural resources. So what we typically call IWRM, Integrated Water Resources Management. And the word integrated is the key issue there, because without integration, basically, we're never gonna do well. So I'm gonna jump directly. Well, this is what it shows, is that this green check mark shows that basically the enabling environment is already there. Where we need really to concentrate is at the bottom of the pyramid, where the day-to-day planning and management of both resources. So I'll try to see whether I can get there. This is about my colleague previously talked to you about the national water strategy. If you look at the national water strategy, he mentioned about 47 initiatives. I'm also making note of that. But notice that the water sector itself only has full predicament on 6 of the 47 initiatives. So all the other initiatives are shared responsibilities with many other agencies, government agencies, even the private sector. For instance, many new players, if you see this list on the right side of the screen at the bottom, you will see there are many new players that were brought to the water sector to practically take care of water services. Call it irrigation, urban water supply, bulk water transfer from one city to another. So the Ministry of Water, MEWA, basically, started to only have strong influence on only 6 of those initiatives. And this is the focus of the day-to-day administration at the present time. But what exactly IWRM involves? This is a very standard definition, but what I want to highlight for you is what is important as take-home messages from this definition. First is IWRM is a process. That's a key word. I will really try to take advantage of that definition to make IWRM as a chain of processes. You will see later on what do I mean by that, where we have to take into consideration water, land, and all other related resources to assess the economic and social welfare of how we distribute water, and at the same time, not to compromise the sustainability of the resource. So if we really make good on this definition, we're going to be doing very well, although it's not an easy task. So as far as here on the lower portion of the slide, you'll see that if you can put together data and information together with business processes, the combination of those 2 elements will really help you on the administration of the resource. And the kingdom has been doing very well on data and information because, as I say, after 20 years of hydrogeological investigation and hundreds of billions of dollars spent on that, you will see that assessing the groundwater sources is a job that has been pretty much completed at a given scale. Always we can do better, but it's good enough at this point in time to embark on what we need to do. The second is the monitoring of the resource. Again, these are all mandates coming from the National Water Strategies and Vision 2030. A very good job is being done. There is always room for improvements, but again, enough has been done. Satellite precipitation monitoring. There are models in place to do that. Now, let me move to the monitoring of the water use. We try to assess what is called the vertical and horizontal expansion of water use. By vertical, we mean how much water a given hectare of a crop is using year after year. And we can monitor that using inline flow meters. And also, if you look on the right side of the slide, this is work, a contribution by KAUST, in which using remote sensing, we can evaluate evapotranspiration, and from evapotranspiration, we can come out with groundwater abstraction. And this has been done retrospectively since 1974, actually. KAUST took care of the last few years, but previous studies did that since 1974. And you will be amazed to see how much water has been already withdrawn from the aquifers. And this is a picture that shows that. This is just one monitoring observation well that shows the decay of the water table, actually the piezometric line, because these are confined aquifers, through the years. And you see it's called unplanned mining. I mean, this is like the Far West. You just take it. So without any regulation, any restriction, you just take it. However, at present time, we have to decide what do we want to do? Do we want to continue with this decay, or we are planning to go on some kind of a recovery of those water tables? Sometimes I make a joke about this, and I say the decision as far as which curve it will continue in the future is how much do you love your grandchildren? It boils down to that. Although, beyond that joke, is a lot of groundwater modeling, economic models that are in place, trying to dictate what is this planning the orderly utilization of the non-renewable groundwater. Let me see if I skip a few, but I'll take you now to another issue, which is very important, which is how can we embed what is called integrated water resources management functions into the day-to-day administration of the resource. What this slide shows is that how the kingdom is doing it, actually. So you will see that they have a regulatory body that deals with the services, the provision of services, another regulator for the base resource. And there are many agencies that are dealing with planning, protection, assessment. Anyway, so what I'm trying, perhaps my message here is to say that because of these many players, it becomes very complicated to really enforce IWRM practices in the kingdom. And because when you have all these many players which are acting in an uncoordinated fashion, there is so-called silo mentality, where you really do your job without really communicating or coordinating with others. So the solution we propose to this dilemma is, can we replace this silo mentality by a process-driven administration that will definitely, we don't need to basically to communicate with people. You let software to do that for you once you get a consensus on how those processes should be run. Keep in mind that this is nothing new. Industry does that. All corporations and governments in the world are run by processes nowadays. And this is the solution I hope we can also implement in MEWA. Essentially, just 1 minute, best practices, if we can really, using this process, we can capture the best practices all over the world that will induce decision-making to conform to regulation. That's the very strong message that we have here. And also to establish communication protocols among departments and other government agencies to conform to regulations. This is my last slide. I'm gonna just show you one example. What do I mean by a process? And this is the case of, this is a conceptualization. In fact, we already have prototype in place about this, offline, obviously, about licensing water abstraction for irrigated agriculture. So who triggers this process is the farmer. The farmer is that, you see, that funny picture that shows in there, and he applies for a license. When he applies for a license, he sets in motion a lot of protocols by which he has to provide information, databases are filled out. Essentially, he gets a license for drilling, a license for water abstraction. He has the obligation to install meters so we can keep track of this vertical expansion that I mentioned to you, which in turn, there's data transmission, more databases involved. At the same time, he has to give us information about what is being produced. So we get each drop of water allocated to that specific user, how much GDP is contributed to. And basically, it will take too long to explain this in detail, but there are many databases and chains of processes that at the end determines whether that license 5 or 10 years down the road have to be or can be renewed to that farmer. So again, I guess this is my last slide. Yeah, and perhaps later on we can open up the floor for discussions. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Gustavo. And I think what we're seeing here is that we could have 3 days of discussions on water alone. So introducing water and food and the nexus of those is going to be an extreme challenge. But many of these discussions, I hope we can continue over lunch and also the breakout sessions tomorrow. So we'll invite you all to those, obviously. The next speaker in this session, we have 2 more tuning in via Zoom. Dr. Abdullah AlRashi is the director of the National Centre for Agricultural Technology at KAUST, as well as the director of the Joint Centre for Environment, Water and Agriculture Research between MEWA and KAUST. Dr. Abdullah has a PhD in water engineering from the University of South Australia and has a broad range of expertise and interests in agricultural water use, plant water requirements, deficit irrigation, the fundamentals in how to manage the water resources that are presenting so many major problems here in the kingdom. Abdullah, I invite you to present your topic, which is on water use and food security in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And I look forward to hearing your perspective on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor McCabe. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah wa salatu. Today, I will talk in this presentation about water use and food security in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I will talk briefly about the KSA food security position. Then we'll see the impact of water use on the food rank globally. After that, I will talk about the KSA strategic crops, then the domestic agriculture contributing to the food security and water security and scarcity. And finally, maybe we'll have 3 or 4 suggestions about the science and technology RDI to improve food and water security in the kingdom.
Dr. Abdullah, are you still online?
Yes. Yeah, okay.
There we go.
Is the presentation okay now?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, so this is the overall score in the for the Saudi Arabian Global Food Security Index. We are scored as a 68 point, and we are 44 ranked over 113 other countries. So we are moderately, or it's okay for the rank in Saudi Arabia globally. But if we are comparing ourselves to our neighbors in GCC countries, I think we can have a better position in the near future. The overall score in the Global Food Security Index is coming actually calculating from 4 different categories. The number 1 is the affordability, availability, quality, and safety. And these 3 categories are having good scores, while in the natural resources, we can see that we have the lowest score. So in 2020, the Global Food Security Index, they have changed and they have make an addition and did the 4th natural resources resilience, which is including the water use and the water as a resource in the global food security. And after that, I mean, in 2021, we have decreased our rank about 8 to 12 positions because of the water situation in the kingdom. So we can see here how the value of the water and impacting the scores. You can see in the exposure, for example, even the temperature rising is pushing the agriculture sector to use more water to cultivate the crops. Drought is also another problem, flooding. Then we can have see the water in regard of the water risk quantity and quality. And we know that most of the groundwater quality is saline water, which is a bit difficult for a lot of crops to cultivate it in. And then we have also the problems with rivers, lakes, and oceans when we don't have enough lakes or even we don't have rivers in the country. So all this impacted the water, and the water have the lower score for our rank in the global food security index. So what is the most important crops, that strategical crops that we can have or can discuss in the agriculture sector? I have here 5 different crops. Rice is number 1, with a complete dependent on imported rice from outside the country. And we don't have actually a lot of work or cultivation in rice, so we didn't have MEWAs, they don't have a lot of information about the water consumption for rice. The second one is barley. This is also another cereals that is very important for strategic crops, and most of the barley goes for livestock feeds. And nowadays we have facing a big problem regarding the prices that is going extremely high nowadays with after the crisis between Ukraine and Russia. The water use is around 7,000 cubic meter per hectare. This is an average in the region of Saudi Arabia. It depends on from the regions again. Maize is one of the most consumable, consumed crop for water. It's consumed around 15,000 cubic meter per hectare in the south, in Jizan and in the southern area, while it's consuming more than 24,000 cubic meter per hectare in the other regions in the middle region, Riyadh, and in the north also. Maize also is imported from outside with rising to meet production, especially poultry. Wheat. The wheat is the most important strategic crop worldwide, and even in Saudi Arabia, we do have a lot of imports from outside the country, but still wheat in a better position than the maize, barley, and rice in regard to the percentage of the production inside Saudi Arabia. We do have 7,300 cubic meter per hectare for to cultivate the wheat in the country in Saudi Arabia. And again, it depends on the region. For example, in Al-Jawf or Tabuk, the northern regions, they are using less than water for hectare comparing to the, for example, Wadi Dawasir or other southern areas. Dates is the only crop that we have self-sufficient in, and we do have calculating also again, MEWAs have estimated the consumption of date with around 7,100 cubic meter per hectare for date palms. And again, it's an average between different regions in Saudi Arabia. So what is the agriculture contributing to water security? Dr. Jalal, Professor Jalal has already gave us a very big and details about that. Let me just talk about the KSA as one of the most water-stressed countries. It's ranked around 8th and 7th most water-stressed countries with its neighbors of GCC countries and also the Middle East. The freshwater resources in Saudi Arabia are being depleted faster than they can be replaced, as we know. And you can see it's the same figure that Dr. Jalal have already explained to us. And the agriculture sector also is the primary user, as we know, for fresh resources in Saudi Arabia, freshwater resource in Saudi Arabia. And this is also happening globally. I mean, in all over the world, most of the countries, agriculture is responsible for most of the water use in their country. The most problem that we are, I mean, the biggest problem, in my opinion, that is the low water use efficiency in the kingdom in the agriculture sector that is being calculated, and it was estimated as 50% of the irrigation system are being in the water use efficiency, while it is around 75 to 76 globally. So I think we need to concentrate more in water use efficiency in the system itself. So what is the challenges that have been addressed in 2030? The most two or the biggest two challenges, one of the biggest challenges that have been highlighted in Vision 2030 or Vision 2030, it was food security and sustainability of water resources. When we talk about food security, we have to speak about, or we have to concentrate more about water resources. So if we are going also to see the sub-challenges under this two categories, the food security and water scarcity, we have water scarcity, we have agriculture management practices. Also, we do have the harsh environment in the kingdom. Infertile soil in Saudi Arabia, we are only having around 1.5 arable land, percent arable land regarding comparing to other countries. And we think we do have a big problem for the soil, and we need to do more work with soil fertility and so again, what is the challenges? Rising demand or the growth population globally and nationally in Saudi Arabia. Also, we have in Saudi Arabia, we have reliant on the imported food. We have limited water resources, limited land. We do have low productivity also, and we have unsuitable breeds, or the breeds that they are being imported from outside, and they are not outside the country, and they are not suitable for our harsh environment. The science and technology could be the answer for this question, this problem and challenges, and we can improve our needs and our use of water use and water and food security by applying the science, technology, and RDI to have a better sustainable food security in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I will have 3 or 4 areas that I think it is we have to concentrate more in the future to enhance or to improve our water use and the food security in the kingdom. One of them, in my opinion, is the smart farming technology. With smart farming, we can increase yields and also profits to farmers at the same time also, and we will lower the risks, especially with the big data that we can collect and help the farmers to know more about their farmers and their productions and what they can and when to irrigate.
Just one more minute, Dr. Abdullah.
Yeah, okay, just 2 more slides, please. So with the smart farming, we can reduce cost of production by also reducing water usage and lowering the human labor costs. The second area that I think we can improve the water use is biotechnology. I mean, with investing more in biotechnology, we can have better breeds that is suitable to be cultivated in our country. That is very important to do more research and work on biotech breeding, especially for strategic crops like wheat and others. The third one is the closed system greenhouse. In greenhouse in Saudi Arabia, we are using evaporative water cooling beds or systems that's consuming a lot of water. Sometimes it is 3 to 2.5 times than the plant it needs. So 75% of the water was going to cooling of the greenhouse, while the others goes to the plant itself. I think we need to put more focus and research on the color and the cooling system in our region. The fourth area that I think it's important to help us is the precision agriculture techniques for desert climate, and especially anything that's in regard to water consumption, soil amendment, soil sensors using GPS satellite or drones to calculate and to see the water use and the water content on the soil. Thank you, and sorry if I'm late.
Thank you, Dr. Abdullah. That was a great overview of some of the technological innovations that are needed to address the challenges that we're focusing on today. The precision agriculture one being very close to my own heart. I'm sure we'll return to a few questions to each of the panelists after the conclusion of our final speaker. It's a great pleasure to invite Dr. Yoshihiro Wada. Yoshihide is the director of the Biodiversity and Natural Resources Program at IASA, the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis in Vienna. And he's also a professor of global water security and food security at Utrecht University in the Netherlands. I'm going to cede my introduction to Yoshi because I know he's got a lot of material that is very pertinent to this discussion. He's going to be talking about some of the real critical issues associated not just with international food, but international water trade, and provide a global context with a local flavour. And I suspect in the light of recent geopolitical events, there'll be some discussion on the resilience and fragility of these systems to handle disruptions and shocks. Yoshihide, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Mark. So hello from Dubai. I'm trying to come to KAUST, and I'm looking forward to joining the workshop tomorrow. So based on the presentations that are given today, sorry for this. Based on the presentation that are given today, I want to also build up the those findings at the domestically and the regional point of view, but also I want to bring the global and the regional perspective of food and the waters. And starting from this figure that you see that a lot of agriculture commodity are traded. Obviously, those commodity are grown with the groundwater. And if you look at these figures, and a lot of countries basically exporting agricultural commodity grown by non-renewable groundwater. This was also pointed out by the previous speaker that in Saudi Arabia, there's a lot of agricultural commodity grown by non-renewable groundwaters. And if you look at this circle diagram, so for example, if you look at the USA, then there's a color, purple to green. This means that the USA is importing agricultural commodity from Mexico. Then if color is the same, then it is exporting. So USA to China, USA to Mexico. And then come down to the Saudi Arabia case. Saudi Arabia is importing agricultural commodity from like several different countries, and that is grown by the non-renewable groundwater. So this gives ideas that in Saudi Arabia, a lot of agricultural commodity is grown by non-renewable groundwaters. However, that Saudi Arabia is also importing the agricultural commodities that are grown by the non-renewable groundwater in other countries. So this gives sort of additional layer of the vulnerabilities in food security in Saudi Arabia. And you can see that there's a lot of interconnectivity from different countries that those agricultural commodity, given that the food agreement, trade agreement, like a NAFTA, that governing the US-Mexico's trade, and also some regional ASEANs, and there's a new trade agreement coming for Asia that's going to change also the trade patterns, and there's quite a complexity in the food trade in the regional and the global perspective. And given that the recent incident in Ukraine and the Russian issues, that I thought it would be very interesting to show this wheat and the rice trade network. This is from the 2009, and basically showing that how the country trade volume among different countries for the wheat and the rice. And you can see that for the wheat, US, Canada, France, Russia, and Australia are the major exporters of the wheat to other countries, and Saudi Arabia is actually importing from Canada and a few other countries from Europe. SAU is Saudi Arabia on the top figure. And for the rice, that the Thailand, US, Pakistan is the major dominant exporter of the rice. And here important thing is that you see that European country like dark blue, they are kind of grouped together. And also US and Latin America are also grouped, that's a light blue color. However, Asia are not so grouped, but it's pretty much scattered, including Saudi Arabia. This is showing sort of like a fragility of the trade. If the one country failed to export the large amount of like cereal or like wheat or rice, that could affect significantly to the food security in one country, and they're going to be cascading impact to the other country. And obviously, the Ukraine, Russia producing about 40% of the wheat of the global production. So this is gonna change quite a bit of that food trade this year and the next year. And this is we go into some case study that how the major disruptive event can affect the food trade, and this is showing for the G8 plus 5 countries. And this is the similar trade pattern figures, and USA exporting a lot of the cereal to other countries, and Japan obviously importing the many cereal from other countries because of the limited resources and the land. And we basically look at like 6 historical events, how that's basically those significant food loss event in the past could affect the food trade in the current situation. So this is in a way the hypothetical simulation that as if this type of like event happened now, how that's going to affect the food trade. And we built up sort of like a food trade network model that try to optimize the food trade given that certain shocks in the systems. And those events including like great famine in the 1300 and also Lucky Fissure eruption, that's the volcanic eruption in 1783. And many associated with like climate extremes. However, I think this year's Ukraine and the Russia issue gonna be a significant food disruption event as well, and it's gonna be very important that how we can accommodate that in the global food market. Also, that affects the Saudi food securities, and those events looking at the food losses in calories and also economic losses in US dollars can go up to the 10% of the global calories, and also the 100 billions US dollars. So that's a significant sort of impact in the economy and also the nutrient and also the food security in different countries. And this is showing basically that those 6 events happen now, how that's gonna change the trade matrix that I showed you previously. So in my previous figure that this is the current sort of like a trade matrix, and please remember this, the left one. Then if those events happen, then how that's gonna sort of restructure the trade volume among different countries. Obviously for the middle ones, US Dust Bowl, that's gonna wipe out all the export from the US. So there's no US exporting any cereal. And for that same for the Chinese farming, that there's no China that exporting the cereal. And lucky eruptions and also the great drought, they have like global impact in their food production losses. And there is also significant impact on the year without summers. And this changed completely the food trade among the different countries. And this tells you that even that there's one significant event, one country could affect like entire world. And Saudi Arabia obviously relying on the food 80-90% from the outside. So that's going to be very important strategy that how to accommodate this type of like events. And this is my last figures. And I just want to recap that so currently in those like major country that are exporting the food and their domestic use, and there's a closing stock in the market, and there's an export. However, most countries actually don't have any reserve that sort of buffer those like shocks and event. You see that the US EU has no reserve in the food or cereal that counteract those like food impact. And if you see that the China, Canada, there is some like food reserve that are available to counteract those like big event. However, that the main message is that the effective food strategy must match both in capacity and the scale and the variability shock that exists in the global food systems. And it is very difficult to predict sort of like extreme events like a climate extreme or like a Russia-Ukraine tensions, and those different type of like extreme event that coming from the economy or like a climate or financial systems. So my message is that I think we also need to think about as well as the domestic sort of food security, but also looking at the regional and the international like food security for like coordinations and accommodating like food shocks and having sort of buffering capacities. For example, we could have like a food reserve regionally together to coordinate among different countries to respond to those shocks. And this could significantly alleviate any spike in the price in global commodity market. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yoshi, for really providing the international perspective on the local problem. You know, we've heard already the requirements that Saudi, the reliance of Saudi Arabia's food system on importing, and the region in general, 80 to 90%, varying on the countries, of food is imported. And we'd previously only been considering the origin of those. Yoshi's earlier slides there indicating the embedded groundwater. It's something that up until recently, and pretty much when that paper was published, wasn't really considered. That it's one thing to have some form of food security in being able to tap international markets to supply your grains. But if those systems themselves are under stress due to the exact same problem we have here, depleting groundwater, the sustainability of those food import supplies is put under great stress. And that's a consideration that I think we need to pay much greater attention to here, because for much of our food production, it is coming from regions where groundwater declines are significant and only going to get worse in the face and threats of climate change. The other side of the equation was the resiliency aspect, and I think we're seeing that very stark examples with regards to the Ukraine-Russian conflict and the effect that it is having on global food supplies, particularly in this region. Now, Saudi Arabia is in a very fortunate position of being able to ensure resilience because of the strong economy. If you can purchase your way out of food supply challenges, that enables a great deal of resilience. Many of our regional neighbours are not in such a strong position. I look to Libya and Syria, and the significant percentage, 40, 50% of their supply is coming from Ukraine, and the instability of those regions already. So while we talk about the food and water and then energy nexus, there's a geopolitical consequence of these decisions and actions as well. So, Yoshi, I wonder if you might hang around for another 10 minutes. I think we have approximately 10 minutes for question times, because I would like to open it to the broader audience in the room to pose some questions to anyone on the panel, or even present some thoughts and discussions, not necessarily questions. So, with that in mind, I will defer immediately to Her Royal Highness Princess Noura.
So, okay, great. So my question is maybe more focused on the policy implications. One of the biggest problems around water is this water is seen as a right to people. So some of the things that are tied to maybe adjustment of prices, etc., might face a lot of resistance, unlike any other commodity. So my question to everyone on the panel is, upon your conclusions, how could you give the policymaker the right kind of tools that people could integrate, as opposed to, what the economic models or common sense in some ways might say?
Yeah, a great question, and again, one of those questions that we could spend a day discussing. Does one of my panel want to take a shot at that?
I try.
Gustavo, thank you. And we have 40 seconds per answer.
Okay.
I think you just press the button on the side.
Okay. When you say water as a right, that definition is only valid in terms of your bare needs. It means water you need for cooking, cleaning, household chores, basically. That's not a problem for Saudi Arabia, taking into consideration that only 10% of the whole water usage in the kingdom goes in that direction. The rest is more a business. So that issue of a water right only applies to that 10%, which is insured already. The concern about the nexus between water and food is about irrigated agriculture. So again, I don't think that's a real problem in terms of policy. It has been, water is instituted as under the domain of government, and it's up to government to decide how to use that water in the best beneficial use. And everything we have seen here in terms of improving food security works in that direction. So I don't see a collision course, actually. Actually, everything is working on the right direction.
Rod, you can be next.
Hello. A question / comment for Dr. Jalal. So in the strategy, you mentioned that we need to increase the percentage of renewable water that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will use. But when you look at where the renewable sources are, especially like more in the southwest or in the Arabian Shield, so does this mean that most or a significant portion of the agriculture will be relocated to these areas? And what will that entail? Thank you.
I think the renewable.
Yes, this one, please.
Oh, okay, it's all right. Yes, you are right. The renewable water in the southwest region, because of the little bit more rain there. I think there is potential to increase the agriculture use there, including the wastewater treatment, and I think they are working in that. There is another program in the actually is running studies that they are trying to use desalinated water in agriculture, and this is right now it's under investigation by I think consultant company to study the possibility of using desalinated water in agriculture and study all its side, the impact on environmental impact and economic impact and all of this. Maybe within 2 years we will have a results for that study. But yes, I think there is concentration on improving the agriculture sector in the southwest. Yes.
Thanks, Dr. Jalal. Rod.
Yeah. I just had a simple question. Are farmers charged for water in Saudi Arabia?
It's not charged for every cubic meter they are going to use. But I think the law, maybe it's addition to her question, I think it stated that the groundwater in general is public properties. It's not for personal right. It's public properties. This is mentioned in the law, I think, clause number 8. And in the other laws, they give, I think, MEWA the right in the law, in the water law that published in, I think, in 2020, they give the MEWA right to install water flow meters, especially in the big farms. And they use their water requirement, and they have to use an efficient irrigation. They will estimate how much water they should pump. Then after that, they will charge them for that. But before that, there's no charge. But under condition of efficient irrigation system. So this, if has been applied, I think it will improve the water use. But they are not going to charge for each amount of water they are pumping. After they exceed the water requirement with an efficient irrigation system, then they will charge them. But there's a process for that. It's not just, there's, I think, a ministerial committee that the MEWA make a recommendation to them, and then they have to study and decide how much money they should charge for that.
Okay, thank you.
This goes back a little bit to the first question from Princess Michelle related to the economics of the problem. The biggest cost to a farmer is not the cost of water, which is free, it's the cost of diesel to pump it out. Diesel subsidized here as well, so we're not even getting the real cost of food production. But if you start to put a real cost of food production on, prices inevitably increase for food costs, and then you disenfranchise potentially parts of society that can ill afford the food needs.
No.
No, Mark has a counterpoint, but Mark, I'm going to delay that counterpoint because we will discuss it over lunch. Mr. Salah Al-Ramadan has a question from the audience.
Yeah, my question again is for Dr. Jalal, and it is related to the water charging. Now it's a big project to put these hydrometers in the farms, and but I don't think, I mean, the aim, of course, is to save water, but I don't think you will save a lot of water because now the cost of pumping water is not little. Medium and large farmers are already, I mean, conscious about how much they pump water, and they are quite efficient. And I think if you base the quotas based on, I mean, realistic use of water, Saudi Arabia will not save water. The overuse is probably with smaller farmers, will not save much. But the question, for example, Dr. Abdulaziz have shown today that one of the projects have done a good job and really reducing the amount of water consumed, and they have invested in that. Why don't you have an incentive to those who will, you have a limit, they have gone much below the limit. Why don't you have an incentive for them, financial incentive, because they really have reduced, and take the knowledge of how they have done it and probably also teach many farmers how to do it. Then you will save a lot of, we will save in our country a lot of water then.
Well, I'm just going to answer this quickly in the interest of time. The water metering may not save water directly, but indirectly, it'll provide precisely the type of issue that was brought up in this morning's session related to data. With this is a region, food production generally is data poor. And I know from our own efforts in trying to quantify the amount of water being used in irrigation, there's no data on it. So for me, the greatest value of the flow meters is to help quantify the actual volumes of water being used to grow our food. And then you can start to introduce potentially licensing and compliance framework, which other countries are exploring as well. Countries like Australia spent many years and made billions of dollars to introduce a licensing and compliance framework for agricultural production, because we are a dry country, driest continent on earth. So it's the only way to save water. It may not be the most direct means of doing so, but that information provides you with the ability to make those water savings. One final, very final comment from your colleague.
Just a little that is the flow meter to know how much we are depleting or we want to charge the farmers?
I'm not going to ask Dr. Jalal to answer that question on the grounds that it might incriminate him.
The flow meter is just to know how much they are pumping water from the groundwater. This is the main purpose. I think there is no data that to know each company. Actually, I think 70% of water uses by big companies and big farmers. And I think those who are they're targeting these people to reduce their water use. I think they are going to meter how much water pumped and then give a quota for each farmer or company or whatever based on their water requirement and high efficient irrigation system. Then after that they'll charge them. So they need to know how much water is used in each company. This is the main purpose. And I think there is about 5,000 flow meter in the beginning. They are going to be installed in big companies.
Wonderful. Thanks, Dr. Jalal. With that, we're going to delay the further discussions until tomorrow. We have some breakout sessions that we'll invite you all along to contribute to. I think that'll be a really valuable contribution to the summit. Paul is going to provide some logistics on lunch. But before he does that, I would like everyone to thank our panelists, both physical and remote, for the wonderful discussions this session has presented. Thank you.
So much. In Australia, we say whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting over, but I guess I can't say that here. So the two sessions that we've explored up until now have been around food and water supply, two very challenging issues. And also, I think we're starting to hear about potentially what some of the solutions might be. So tomorrow is going to be a really fascinating day, I suspect. We are going to be having a lunch break. After the lunch break, we'll be having a session on food use. So how efficient are we at linking food supply to food consumption? Have we got the mix right there? So that will be, I suspect, an underappreciated challenge in achieving food security in Saudi Arabia. So the logistics around lunch.